The views and opinions expressed on Wrestling Winedown are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. Hey guys, it's Lo, and you are tuned in to Wrestling Winedown, a female-founded and hosted podcast dedicated to professional wrestling and our favorite adult beverage. On this week's episode, I am joined by a very special guest that I've wanted on the show for so long, and she is a Jane of many trades. She is a wrestling influencer, a wrestling fashion designer who has designed merchandise inspired by the likes of The Undertaker, The New Day, Sable, and many more. She recently accompanied AJ Gray to the ring at the Collective in Indianapolis, and she is the OG Wrestlebae. Alexis Littlefoot joins me in this episode, and we are chatting about everything from how her passion for professional wrestling began, to her day leading up to her managerial debut at the Collective in Indianapolis, to what inspired her to make wrestling merchandise. We're also spilling the wine on Alexis's involvement with the WWE Superstar Search. So grab your glass of wine. We're going in for the 3 count. As I mentioned in my intro, I am joined by Alexis Littlefoot. Alexis, I hope you're ready to sip some wine and talk some wrestling.
I'm grateful to be here. I've watched you guys since the very first show, and when you guys were just teasing this idea, and I was like, oh my god, their logo is so cute. Oh my god, this is such a great idea.
Oh, that means so much.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I love it.
How did your interest in wrestling begin?
I grew up, my mom was a single mom, so my older cousins would watch me, and they had I had cousins around my age and younger than me, and my little cousin, he would play the wrestling video games on his PlayStation all the time. Mm-hmm. So my first introduction to wrestling in my real life was a video game. I just thought it was a video game like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. I didn't know that it was an actual show that comes on TV.
Once you realized that WWE just wasn't a video game and it was a television show, did your interest peak? And how old were you at this time?
When I first played the video games, I was super young. I was probably 5 or 6. And then I randomly, years down the line, flipping channels. It's a Thursday night. I'm probably supposed to be asleep at this time. I can't remember if I was on spring break or not. And I flip channels and I just land on John Cena, and he's coming out, and this is during the feud with JBL. So they're doing all the big build up to WrestleMania. So that was my first introduction to real life wrestling, was John Cena in his Dr. Thugonomics gimmick.
You are one of many people that I've had on the show that have mentioned that John Cena has brought you to wrestling, and he also did the same for me. I mentioned it before, but I found wrestling on the Spanish channel before, came across it while flipping channels as well, and saw John Cena, and was instantly captivated with the characters that were on Monday Night Raw and everything that was going on. And I don't speak Spanish, but I still understood what was going on through, the videos and stuff like that, and eventually found it on the USA Network and just completely fell in love with it too. You're also a well-known wrestling influencer. I have your shirt on right now. You've designed merch. What inspired you to get into designing clothing?
I have been obsessed with fashion since I was a little girl. I always dreamed of being a fashion designer. That was my dream job. I would in notebooks draw little girls with jersey dresses on and stuff like that, and just design my own type of dresses for the 2000s, and they were all looking back on it, they were probably super horrible looking now, but went to school to be a fashion journalist because I couldn't go to fashion school because it was way too far, it cost too much money, and there's really no guarantees in fashion.
Right.
So I met in the middle, and I was well, I really like writing as well. So once I got to high school, I found literature and was really good in English and writing and all that stuff. So when it was time to go to college, I was well, I still want to do fashion, but I don't want to do it to the extent of I know how to sew and stuff like that. So, but I didn't want to be a struggling intern and have to do all that crazy stuff. And I'm I want a job fresh out of college. That's just my goal. So I went to school. My first year, I actually had to sneak into college. So I was paying out of state tuition. So we found a loophole. And if you take a major from an out of state school that's not offered anywhere in your state, you can go to that school for in-state tuition. So that's what I did. So I originally went my first year at UK, I went for arts administration, and then with a theater focus. and did some acting there. And then my second year, I somehow magically got a student loan and changed my major to journalism, and then I double majored in fashion merchandising.
You have designed merchandise inspired by superstars of today and yesterday, including the likes of Sable, The New Day, Ric Flair, and many more. What was the first shirt that you designed and distributed based off a WWE superstar?
First piece of merch was bootleg, I guess that's what people call it, bootleg WWE merch, was the I Feel Like Taker shirt.
Oh,
I
yeah, I do remember that one.
I made it as just a little one-off for myself. So what I did was I had a friend who was making, at the time, Kanye's I Feel Like Pablo merch was popping, and he was on that Pablo wave. So I took it, and my friends actually took it, and they did a I Feel Like Gucci Man shirt, and I reached out to him, and I was like, well, you already have the fonts and stuff. I need you to make me I Feel Like Taker. And this was right after, gosh, this was so long ago. This is right after I feel like he lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And that's not even my favorite shirt that
What
I've made.
is your favorite shirt?
The Ric Flair collection that I did with the Rolex logo was probably my favorite, because I did all the lettering and all the color matching and all this. I did the entire logo myself.
We have to talk about this. I've had so many questions for a long time. The Diva search, the whole debacle there.
The superstar search.
Oh, yes, the superstar search. So I remember seeing this online when they first put it out there, and there was a bunch of people trying to figure out who was auditioning for this. And there were a couple people I recognized, and then I saw you said something, and I was like, oh, wow. But you were very discreet about it, which I respect. You don't want everyone knowing your business. But how was that process?
I had a pretty different process. So what they did was they had a website where you go and you fill out an application. They announced this right before Phoenix, before the Royal Rumble in Phoenix, or after. I can't remember if it was before or after. So Phoenix was the weekend that me and all the girls, Leah, Alex, everybody all went and met up.
The Wrestlebae
for Royal Rumble, because we all do this collective trip, and this is the one that everybody could pretty much go on, and it was literally the best weekend that we've had. And that was the weekend where the WWE PC channel followed us when we were at Access, and they did that whole video package for us, and that was amazing. Or I saw it go out when WWE tweeted it that they were doing a Diva search or Superstar search or whatever you want to call it. And so I talked to the girls, and I was like, I think I'm gonna apply. And so I applied, and then a couple days later, or a week later, I got a call from a casting director from E Network, because that's who they were doing it with, because WWE has a big partnership with E. And she called me. We did a quick little phone interview, and then she was like, well, I'm gonna move you up, and we're gonna do a Skype interview, Zoom interview, whatever. And so it was scheduled for 2 days after that, or 3 days after that. So I got cute, dressed up, all cute, and we did this interview, and that was where it ended. I did the video interview, and they were the next level was to pass it on to the actual director of the show. And I guess it got passed on from there, and I wasn't what they were looking for. Honestly, in my humble opinion, they didn't want girls that already knew about wrestling. That's the vibe that I got from it. I know there was a few girls that were already wrestlers that were in talks of being on the show, but from the girls that I ended up actually I wanted this so bad, because I was like, this has always been, I fell in love with the Diva search when it first happened, and some of my favorite divas are from the Diva search era. So I was like, oh, this would be great for me. This is how I want to come in. It's a reality show too, and I have a personality for reality TV, I feel like. So they had an in-person casting in LA.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
and me and Aaliyah went to it because that's when she was living in LA at the time. So I spent literally almost my last $500. I put $500 on a credit card and got a last minute plane ticket to LA, because I was like, I'm getting this part. I'm not playing. I'm getting on this TV show. So we went, and they had different casting directors there. And of course, the one I get was the girl that already interviewed me, so I didn't get pushed through from there. But a girl from my group that got pushed through, she was like an Instagram model. That's what I think they were looking for, like.
But I don't even think it went to TV, did it? It seems like it got canned.
So I feel like because E was in charge of the whole thing. So he kind of like literally let E do all the things, and E's gonna cast for a reality TV show like how they cast for Love Island or how they cast for any of these MTV reality shows. They're not gonna cast for a Survivor because they don't have a show like that on their network.
Right.
They're going to cast for a Total Divas. Like they're going to cast, like, they want personalities. They don't really want athletes. I think that's part of it. They produced the girls that they chose, and WWE was like, nah. I don't even know if they shot a pilot for it, honestly.
You recently made your managerial debut at the Collective, accompanying AJ Gray in his match against Desmond Xavier. So how did this whole pairing come about?
Like you were saying, like wrestling Twitter, and I feel like back in the days, like social media wasn't a major aspect of professional wrestling. You know, of course you had the internet, but I feel like the wrestlers would stay away from the internet just because of the dirt sheets. Like that was like the main thing.
Yeah.
Like they trashed the internet because the dirt sheets were this and this and this, because they were basically telling all their drama that was supposed to stay behind the scenes.
Right.
But now with wrestling Twitter and Twitter in general, more wrestlers are active because they're using social media to get their character out there and get booking and get jobs and stuff like that. I really don't know how it happened. I want to say it was like something was going on. It was some like major controversy. I can't remember what the exact controversy was, but somehow AJ Gray got retweeted onto my timeline, and I was like, man, this guy's spitting some real stuff. Like he's really saying what we've been saying, you know, all this time. And I think AJ's one of those guys that he really doesn't care what people think of him. So he's going to say what he has to say. And that's the type of person that I am. If you follow me on social media, I'm going to say what I have to say. It's going to be right there in black and white. And I'm not, you know, that's what it is. So from there, I just started following him. And then we just started engaging on Twitter. And we noticed my real name is same to his real name. He's from Lexington, Tennessee. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. So like the coordination was there. And we just became friends like everybody else now does nowadays, just friends from the internet. And I tweeted, I'm going to be this guy's manager one day or something like that. And I was supposed to do this for him when the Collective for the Culture was going to be in Tampa. So this has been a long drawn out thing. And that was like literally like to me it was like, dang, that's like literally my first gig. Like, dang, I'm salty, you know, with COVID hitting like it did. But then they came back and did it again in Indianapolis. And I was like, well, the back of my mind was, I was like, dang, they're going to redo this again. And I'm not going to be able to go because it's going to be somewhere far, far away. And then when they said it was going to be in Indianapolis, I'm like, oh, well, that's only like a 2.5 hour drive for me. Like I can drive down. Even from then, we still hadn't discussed it. Like we had discussed it all leading up to Mania, but we hadn't discussed it like post-COVID and during quarantine and all that stuff.
Looking back on this moment, how did you feel during and before it? Now that you're training to be a wrestler yourself, seeing how everything went, what feelings and emotions did you have?
Oh, I was nervous. Like literally the whole day we had not even had any communications. Like when I got there, I was like, I'm here. And he had like a match at 12 o'clock. And from there, I went to my hotel, changed, got ready. And then we somehow went there like a couple hours early, went backstage. I almost didn't get in. Like I like literally showed up to this thing with like no ticket. Like, and that's how I show up to most shows, because I'm like, well, I always know somebody that knows somebody that's gonna be able to get me in. So I literally, like, they were like, well, we're not selling tickets for the show. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna wait here until 11:59. Like, I'm gonna get in the building. It's cold. Like, I'm not about to wait. So I ended up getting in somehow. Actually, thanks to my friend Stella, she got me in. So we went backstage, saw AJ. He was still going through his match. Like just prepping and all that stuff backstage, and it's just like a different feeling. Like, and I was still like, we still hadn't talked about it. Like, I knew it was gonna happen, but we hadn't like discussed anything. I go and watch all the first couple of matches, and then during the match, like right before he's out watching the match, and I come to him and I'm like, yo, am I still walking you out? He was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And he was like, well, meet me like right before this ends, back by the gorilla. And I was like, okay. My heart's beating. I go and I sit next to Stella and Sunny Kiss, and I'm like, y'all, I gotta walk AJ out to his match. I'm scared to death. He hasn't told me anything that I'm supposed to do. And so I go back to meet him, and I was like, I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. He already knew what I was gonna say. He was like, don't ask me what you're supposed to do because I have no idea. I was like, oh my God, like, I've never done this before, like, seen people do it. Like, I watch wrestling on TV, and I'm like, well, how hard could it be? And I was like, well, I'm like overthinking all these scenarios, like what I could do. I'm like, I'm not about to go out here and embarrass myself, and these people don't even know who I am. I was like, well, I know the lyrics to his theme song. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rap those lyrics, and I'm gonna just keep it moving. And that's exactly what I did.
And you did a good job.
Oh, thank you. I have not watched it back. Like, I refuse to watch it back.
I saw the like compilation someone had made the other day.
Yeah,
I saw that.
That's the only thing I've seen. I haven't like gone back and fully watched it on TV, and I probably never will.
You also recently started wrestling training in your hometown. How has that been?
Well, it's not technically my hometown. I drive literally like 50 minutes away to a city called, well, it's not even a city, Cynthiana, Kentucky, but it's going well. I'm super excited. Hurts a little bit. I face planted today.
Oh,
so
God.
it like really is like ballet. Like, you have to get your steps right, or like you have to calculate, like, but if you're in midair, so what we were doing is we were doing a spot where I like go up and do kind of like a jump up, and he goes between my legs. Mm-hmm. And like literally I came down so fast, I guess, and he didn't crouch down low enough because I can't really get up that high. I can get pretty high, but not too like crazy high. Mm-hmm. And he like clipped me going under, and I like literally fell face forward, and I did not catch myself because I'm like eyes closed, like I'm gonna hit the mat, and literally my chin like smacked the mat.
Even though you are in the beginning of wrestling training, I am super excited to see what's next for you in the wrestling world, and I'm sure a lot of other people are as well. Where can the people keep up with your journey?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Littlefoot. That is YUNG Littlefoot, and it's littlefoot.com. All that.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wrestling Winedown. You can find all of our other episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you listen to your podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at WWDCAST. Our new website is also coming soon. Let us know what you thought about the episode. What was your favorite part? We upload episodes with brand new co-hosts every week. Until next time, enjoy your wine and, of course, enjoy your wrestling. Cheers!